Salutations everyone, this is Razor bringing you guys another Overwatch video where today I'm going to be talking about Hanzo's rework that is set to possibly hit the BTR sometime in April. It wouldn't be a big surprise if it, maybe was pushed till May, and then obviously we're going to have probably between 2 and 4 weeks of testing for them to fine tune, maybe even 5 weeks, and before it goes into the live client, and then we'll start seeing some things about Symmetra and Torbjorn after that. But it will be coming out post Brigitte release, as Jeff Kaplan wrote. So hopefully, he says, we'll be in the PTR after that, hoping for sometime in April. So Hanzo has been the butt of many an Overwatch joke. Hanzo main has become an insult in the gaming community. And people don't like having Hanzos on their team. I don't like having Hanzos on my team because they really don't perform well. I've only once fought against a good Hanzo, but I've played some good Hanzo myself, whether it's TDM or free-for-all or mystery heroes or quick play or competitive. He's not the most easy hero to be consistent with, and obviously a lot of times when you pick a niche hero, especially a sniper like Hanzo or Widow, you're going to get messages, people telling you to switch, even though, nothing has happened yet. The game hasn't even started. And you could even go ham and get 4 gold medals with Hanzo, and they'll still probably ask you to switch because they're used to Hanzos being bad, and no one really knows how to work well with the Hanzo because of the experiences and the stigma about Hanzos. But hopefully with a rework, all of that can change, and we'll be like, all right, Hanzo, that's a pretty good pick. Or, someone be like, that Genji isn't working, switch to a soldier or Hanzo. We'll start hearing sentences like that. I doubt it. Because he's still going to be a skillful character to use. So we know all of the things that the Overwatch team was looking at with Hanzo. And for a long time, we've been hearing people wanting a Hanzo rework, and most of the people have started off their ideas of what needs to change about Hanzo is nerfing him. And that really doesn't make a lot of sense to me, since people don't like Hanzo because he's not as good as the other DPS characters, and you don't even see him, in the highest levels of play in top 500 or the Overwatch League all that often. You sometimes will see Hanzo, King's Row, especially attack point 1. We saw a little bit of Hanzo on Junkertown on attack with the dual sniper strategy on the DPS, but that never really worked out. And obviously you have to be consistent and have a lot of teamwork to have a lot of characters work. And, Hanzo is one of them. But Scatter Arrow was almost a tried and true value that you can get out of Hanzo. I think we would all much rather have a bad Hanzo on our team than a bad Widowmaker. Because a bad Widowmaker is going to be missing shots, having an ultimate that's not really going to help swing team fights. She's not super mobile, and they're not in the right positions. But a Hanzo could get some random shots at full power, whereas Widowmaker is going to have to charge hers and be a little bit more accurate. Even though Hanzo's projectiles have the smallest hitbox in the game. Actually, they're smaller than I think I heard that Mercy's Caduceus pistol was projectiles 4 times bigger than Hanzo's arrow. So you have to be skilled for the arrow. People used to make jokes that you were shooting tree trunks with Hanzo, but he got that, nerf / buff, early on in the game to make his projectiles smaller, but be more consistent. And then we got the quality of life where you could charge your arrow and then wall climb and then keep that charge. But Scatter Arrow has been a big point of contention. And a lot of people are like, nerf Scatter Arrow, nerf Scatter Arrow. If you nerf Scatter Arrow, then you're just nerfing Hanzo to the ground. One of the nice things about having a Hanzo main on your team is that you could at least count on them accidentally killing someone with a Scatter Arrow, and their ultimates at least could kill people, which you couldn't say about a Symmetra or a Widowmaker or other niche heroes that we don't like having on our team a lot. That Hanzo's going to get scatter, and he's probably going to get a couple of, guaranteed kills, whereas you can't say that with the Widows out there, and, the Mays out there that are just trolling, and the Sims that are just dying, and Torbjorns that are just getting their turret destroyed and not doing anything. So that was, one of the things that we had on our team. Whenever we did have a bad Hanzo play, we were like, all right, maybe he'll hit a good scatter, take out a tank or a Mercy or something. But if you take that away, then he's unplayable, right? That's not what we want. And I don't understand how people were saying Hanzo needs to be nerfed. No, he needs to be buffed. And Jeff Kaplan and the team, took a look at scatter arrows specifically, and were looking at ways to rework it. So they thought about replacing it with a shield piercing arrow, but felt that was a little unfair because you have a Zenyatta behind a shield, and all of a sudden he gets one shot, and that's kind of unfair. You can somewhat understand that. It was a little bit more of a snipey arrow, as Jeff said, but it wasn't fun to play against. And another option for changing scatter arrow was that it couldn't split off the floor. Well, then you just take away all of its usefulness. How often do you use it to shoot off a wall, and how often, in those circumstances where you do go for those, whether it's, in a corridor or trying to hit someone who just ran around the corner, how often did that translate to kills versus scattering the floor in front of them and doing a crap ton of damage? So that was scrapped because it would need visual and sound work, so they scrapped that idea. And their last idea was a one-man army ability. For those of you who aren't familiar, in Modern Warfare 2, there was a perk called One-Man Army, where you would take out a little backpack, and there would be a little timer meter that would go for 3 seconds, and once that went through, everything that you had got refilled. All your explosives, all your attachments, and all of your primary and secondary ammo. And that became the most broken thing in the game that didn't require cheating, is that you can put on a grenade launcher, a noob tube, and just have an infinite supply of it due to one-man army. So obviously they felt that this was an idea that needed to be shelved as well. If you could have a small reload time that sacrificed Hanzo's regular arrows to forcibly reset his special arrows, then you just have constant scatters or constant sonar arrows, and that's just unfair. So what they decided to do was give Hanzo a volley as well as a leap, a little bit of a mobility change, which was a very nice idea for them to have, to where he can leap to one side and get to some places that he couldn't originally, we've been told, as well as, just a nice thing when, the Winston leaps in, leap, and then, shoot, hopefully survive, right? It gives him a little bit more survivability, a little less diveable, gives him more options like Widow's ability to grapple away, although hopefully this little leap will be on a bigger cooldown. And so we'll keep Hanzo a little less vulnerable, which is nice. All of the, we know that mobility is such a huge thing in Overwatch, and, the big DPS characters like Tracer and Genji and Pharah and Soldier, they have a lot high mobility. And if you want to have some power and sacrifice some mobility, like McCree, who does, have a role, but you can use that to evade as well as reload. Obviously, Hanzo doesn't need to reload. He's got a quiver full of infinite arrows, as we're accustomed to in video games nowadays. People were wondering, is this new Hanzo just going to be a McCree? No, because Hanzo will be a little bit better at long range, and McCree will be better at close range, and they'll be, have a give and take in the mid-range fight. With McCree probably having a little bit of an edge, just he's going to have more firepower, more FPS, more firepower per second in order to hit those headshots and then, stun and fan the hammer and things like that. So he's going to be a little bit better and more consistent in the mid-range, better in the close range. Hanzo is going to be a little less consistent mid-range, but do more damage long range, less damage drop-off. So this new volley arrow allows him to fire 6 shots in 2 seconds, with each arrow doing 80 damage, the full draw damage, as well as 160 damage if it's a headshot, and it was confirmed that this new volley can do headshot damage. So this means you can 2-shot any 200 HP hero as long as you land 1 headshot and 1 body shot, and you have 6 arrows to do that. So if a Tracer comes at you and she doesn't recall or blink away, bink bink, or as long as one's a headshot and one's a body shot, you can get rid of that threat, or 3 body shots, or a tank comes at you, they get discorded and anti-healed, bop 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 bop. If they're not able to get away in time, and with Hanzo having a pretty good wide effective range in his bow and arrow, you're going to have a lot more opportunities to do that. So, and with a Mercy Pocket, you can one-shot any 2 HP hero, and you can do this obviously against more than one hero. We don't know how it's going to feel as far as like what your mobility is going to feel like, what your aim is going to feel like. Are you going to be planted in the ground? Will you be able to wall climb while you're doing it? Will you be able to hop while you're doing it? We haven't gotten a full explanation of how that whole spiel is going to work, but I think the idea behind it is to get more damage, more consistent damage out of Hanzo without the unfair feeling of getting one-shot scattered. Like, I think we've all, been in Orisa at one time or another, and, we're getting ready to hold a position, and Hanzo scatters at our feet from behind us, and we get one shot. And it's like, that sucks. That sucks because a tank just gets instantly deleted. They've also mentioned thinking about, they haven't announced that this is going to be a thing yet, and we'll obviously get more information about that in a month or so, on decreasing the charge time on his regular shot, which would be pretty nice. And obviously, they have the internal testing to work that out, and then the PTR is going to give people give the Overwatch team a lot of feedback, whether that's good or bad, where we'll have yet to see. Obviously, a lot of people are already in uproar. People already think Hanzo's OP, yet 0 people have played him, and it's kind of like a new character. Moira comes out, some people say she's useless, other people say she's overpowered, and they've had very little time and not on the live server. And then she comes out, and she's pretty good. Doesn't need a nerf, doesn't need a buff. It's fine. Brigitte has yet to come out. Some people think she's OP, some people think she's completely useless. Guess what? She's going to be somewhere in between. So those are always the feedback that people always have whenever something new comes to the game. It's either OP or useless, and it tends to be neither of them, because game devs, especially Blizzard and the Overwatch team, know exactly what they're doing. And when they do make mistakes, and the PTR shows that, like with the Bastion meta that lasted for a little bit, they toned that down a little bit, and then we didn't have to worry about Bastion, but he was still a lot stronger than he was before. That's what we always need. Whenever they make a change to a character, they nerf something and they buff something else. Because they want every character to be in a pretty good place where they're applicable in at least some situations. And they definitely want to make Hanzo have a portion of the pie, to where people aren't going to rage about Hanzo mains on their team, because Hanzo will be a better character, maybe a slightly easier character to play, more consistent damage, less vulnerable, and also not as unfair every now and again when you get one shot scattered. That was the only big value thing that Hanzo could get consistently. Obviously, you do need to have some aim with his regular fire to get some good damage, and we've all had, bouts of success with that. But it's not as consistent as a McCree, and you are going to be in a more dangerous spot than with a Widowmaker, and you aren't going to be able to get one-shot kills as often as a good Widow. So we want Hanzo to be a part of the team. We want him to be something where people can go, all right, so our 2 DPSs we got a Tracer and a Hanzo. All right, that's pretty good. We got, Diva and Reinhardt, let's go. That's what we want. We don't want, can the Hanzo main switch? I don't like it when I have Hanzos on my team, but, I also don't like it when I have other characters on my team, but sometimes people can surprise you and play the role correctly. And if Hanzo can output more damage, that is ideal. And if we could, I've never really had a huge problem with scatter. and Hanzo isn't the least used character in the world. I've been one-shot scattered as a tank, as a squishy. I've done it myself as Hanzo, but he's never felt overpowered. People find that ability unfair, but if the volley can do just as much damage or more damage more consistently, yet take longer to do, unless you're like, Mercy boosted or Arisa Bongo boosted, then that will feel more fair because there's more parts of that equation going into the game than just, shoot at the ground and hope RNG favors you, whether you're the Hanzo or the targets. You never know. So we want to see more consistency, we want to see more damage, and we want to see more viability coming out of Hanzo, and hopefully this rework can do that. I am very excited to see what we get to see with the PTR, how the leap works, how the volley works, and if he can output the same damage as when he had Scatter Arrow, maybe get more ult charge, live a little longer, do more damage against barriers, against squishies, against tanks, against Pharahs. It'll be really cool to see what type of role Hanzo will now be able to fill. Because we can all agree he's not in the best place right now, and this rework is a really good idea, and hopefully Hanzo main won't be an insult for much longer.